Welcome into the American In Leeds YouTube and Spotify channel. With me today is Oscar from All Leeds TV, the OG of the content creation world, as well as Chris Fox at Chris Fox 75 on Twitter. The first 20 minutes of this episode, we dig into Oscar's origin story, how he became a Leeds United fan, and the early days of All Leeds TV. Of course, his relationship with Connor from One Leeds and Joe with the Just Joe football show, and those guys, and as well as LUFC Lewis, the old school OGs of the Leeds United content creation world. That's the first 20 minutes, and then the final piece, the final part, is really all the crazy news that was Leeds United this week, with everything from the 2-2 draw, no incomings, and then 2 incomings, as in Rodon, and of course Aaron's got hijacked, the Willie Nanto saga, and the pieces that the 49ers are continuing to pick up after the Rad Razzani and Victor Orta era comes to a close. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah, no, I've for me it's been since the Champions League days, so it's been like all downhill since then, really.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of start right now because I can clip the end of this off.
Yeah,
but like,
sure.
talk to me. I'm always interested in like what is your origin story? A lot of people like Jeer and other guys I talked to, like Ollie Ward I've talked to before, and it's like generational, it's passed down. Their dads were into it, and they kind of, they had no choice in the matter. They were going to be Leeds fans. And, with some people, it's like by family, like another guy I know, Michael, his grandmother's from Leeds. And so that's how he became a Leeds fan, got into, he's got heritage back in Yorkshire. So talk to me about just like how you became a Leeds fan.
Well, it's quite a long story, really. First and foremost, yes, it's also generational with myself. So I'm actually from a small town near Liverpool called Southport, about 40 minutes away from Liverpool, about half an hour away from Preston. So I don't actually live that close to Leeds at all, but it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours every game just to get to Leeds. So the home games were effectively away games for myself. None of my family's from Leeds. No close families from Leeds. So essentially, it is from the 60s. My granddad is a joiner by trade. Pretty much the whole family are tradesmen.
Wow.
Like a family tradition as such. And he was doing work at Gary Sprake's house in the mid to late 60s. So probably like in 67, 68. I think it was 67, actually. It was just before, about 2 years before the first title in 69. So, yeah, he was doing work at Gary Sprake's house. My dad was around 7, 8 at the time. He was born in 1960, so yeah, that would be about right. And essentially, he was starting to get into football. And my granddad thought, okay, I'm at Gary Sprake's house. I wonder if I can get any memorabilia as such. And to be fair, Gary Sprake was great. Gave my granddad some memorabilia, which he gave on to my dad. And then in the end, there was a bit of a back and forth, really, in terms of communication, which is absolutely crazy in today's game. But yeah, he was getting letters from Gary Sprake. He was sending letters back to Gary Sprake, and it was fantastic. And that's essentially how I became a Leeds fan. He went to watch Everton play Leeds. I think it was during the season we won the title. I think it was that season, his first game away at Everton at Goodison Park. And yeah, so essentially from there, he became a Leeds fan all through the 70s, 80s, going home and away as much as he could. And then into the 90s, I was born in the mid 90s, so it was essentially I started getting into it when I was about 5 or 6, and it was just into the Champions League era, the back end of the Champions League era. So halfway through the David O'Leary era as such, and I was hooked straight away, really. Again, my dad was working away a lot during that time, so I didn't actually go to a game in person until 2005. So it was like 3 or 4 years, a good 3 or 4 years until they actually went to a game. And then ever since that, I've been a regular at Leeds ever since, being a season ticket holder now for so I can never think if it's the first or second not championship, League One season. I think
wow.
I think it was the second one. I went to a lot of games in the first League One season, but I wasn't a season ticket holder at that point. So yeah, I've done a lot of games, a lot of away games, a lot of big memories. You know, being to the lows of places like Tranmere away, the first game back in League One, unbelievable memory, that one. But that was a low point in Leeds' history. So the high points away at Old Trafford, you know, winning on January the 3rd as a League One team, and then, you know, I've seen a lot. I've not seen it all because I didn't see the Champions League days, but again,
you've seen the ups and downs.
Yeah, I saw the Champions League days, but not in person, and that's a big regret, because I think at the time when I was a kid, you don't really realise how big it is, especially when you're a little bit less aware of the ongoing history of Leeds United. Obviously, you know straight away we're a massive club, and obviously not being from the area, I've spent a lot of my life in Leeds, to be fair, but I wasn't originally from the area, as I've already said. But you know straight away how big a club it is. But I probably took for granted a little bit those early days, but you do as a kid. You know, I'm talking like 6, 7 years old here, but you know, obviously didn't fully take the games in, but I do remember a lot of them. You know, I wasn't you know, massively knowledgeable on football at the time, but yeah, it's great memories. But yeah, that was the high point, and realistically, at this moment in time, probably won't ever get as high as that if we're being realistic. But let's see what the 49ers can cook for us. You know,
we'll see.
Hey,
you know, the football pyramid is what's attractive to, you know, to fans. Chris has joined us. Brendan has also joined us. And Oscar's got takeaway coming, or delivery coming, so he might jump off. There's no like mute buttons that I can see. So like if you got to jump off, just get out, and then you can open up again and then come back on.
Yeah,
so
no worries, mate. No worries.
That's how we'll I think we'll try to do it. But you know, I want to just let's unpack that. I want to unpack your origin story. I want to unpack All Leeds TV real quick, and then let's get into the news of the week. But so like when I first messaged you, you were like an OG to me of the content creation world. Obviously, I watched, you know, during COVID as you and Connor and Joe did a watch along and did the promotion, and obviously Connor and Joe were balling, and you're doing this huge, like, you know, thing about like all the history of the club and all this over, and we're back in the Premier League and all this stuff. And kind of an innovator, and I know the rest of the folks over there at All Leeds TV really, I felt like, started to do serious Leeds United content just from an outsider, as somebody that was trying to get into the club. But just talk to me like how you started All Leeds TV, or you and the team started All Leeds TV, and then you know, and then like kind of everything from there.
Yeah, so it's I think I first got interested in covering Leeds on YouTube. I think it was around the start of the Gary Monk season. But again, I was at the last year of university, so I didn't really have the time to really put it together.
Yeah.
At that point. But I knew I was interested in it. I got to know LUFC Lewis Dayton really well early on. So me and Lewis go back a long, long way, to be fair. Yeah, obviously I'm very close to Joe O'Connor as well. But to be fair, me and Lewis go back a long, long way. And there was a lot of people, not a lot, but there were a lot's probably the wrong word for it, but there were some really good content creators at that point who don't actually do it anymore. But they were really, really good. Freddie Dalton, I think, was brilliant at the time. He was doing vlogs. And Will Batty as well. I've not heard from them for ages, but they were top lads, and they got me into it, to be fair. And then kind of one of those things, it was just getting the time, really. And to be honest, I still have the issues with time now, but I really got into it towards the back end of 2017, 2018. I tried running my own channel, but didn't really have the time to keep it up. And I didn't really enjoy it on my own. I wanted to do it in a group of people. I wanted to have that kind of camaraderie as such and be part of something like that. So I joined All Leeds TV. I think it was February 2018, and then started doing videos pretty much straight away. And yeah, so All Leeds TV was already there before I joined. I think it had been going for about 4 months. And again, straight away, everyone welcomed me in and really, really enjoyed it. And I never for 1 minute thought we'd get it to what it is, or what it has been. I never ever for 1 minute. We're on 28,000 subscribers, and unimaginable at the time. Obviously, being in the Premier League has helped things, but straight away, people have been unbelievably supportive. And yes, there was some criticism to start with, but I kind of expected that because when we first started was when things like Arsenal Fan TV were at the peak. And then you got like the Man United channels and that lot where really bad perception of fan channels. And I think the way we kind of marketed it at first was a mistake, in terms of that we kind of promoted it a bit like Arsenal Fan TV and, Man United. I've no problem with what they do, by the way, but I just don't think it's something that Leeds fans would ever take to in that respect because I just don't think it's just not a Leeds kind of thing, what they've tried to build. And I do totally respect, what they've built. Not questioning that.
What do you mean, like stuff, like they do a lot of stuff on the street and they do a lot of
I don't think it's something that would ever really take off at Leeds. And we never felt that. There was never any intention for me to go about it like that. And there was no intention for anyone at the team. And we got a bit of criticism for that to start with, but it was honestly never our intention. So we started off with pre-match, post-match stuff. And then Joe got involved that summer. Connor as well got involved that summer, but he was living in Australia at the time. And then, it just kind of kicked off from there. Marcelo Bielsa turns up, a lot of traction from, Argentina into the channel. And it really, really kicked off from there. And it was just almost like an instant success, really, in terms of within 2 or 3 months of me joining, it felt like we really were starting to kick on. And then Joe coming in took us to another level. Connor coming in again took us to another level. And it was just a really, really enjoyable experience. It still pinched myself, all these years being going to Leeds, and thinking when I was like sort of 15, 16, that people will be listening to me talk rubbish about Leeds United is just absolutely mind-blowing. It still is, it's, and I just really, really enjoy talking about Leeds United. And, it's not changed me as a person. That absolutely not. There's no reason for that. And, I'm still a fan as much as anyone.
Yeah.
I still think like a fan. There's no question about that at all. And, there's this other perception with fan channels that we like it when we lose. Absolute nonsense.
Right.
Nonsense, For Leeds, the way we've marketed the channel, the way we've built the channel, we always do worse views-wise when we lose games. Always do worse views-wise when we lose games because that's not what we're about. We're just about trying to give a balanced take on the games. Of course, sometimes emotions run high. There's been things I've said on All Leeds TV that I've regretted, where I've maybe got a little bit personal against certain players. And I kind of watched it back and thought, no, I shouldn't have said that. And it's all part of a learning experience. But it's been absolutely phenomenal. Getting a chance to then go on to things like Sky Sports, BT Sport. It's amazing, really. And it's just been a phenomenal opportunity. And I also work for the club as well on match days. So it is amazing.
Oh, nice.
I do try and be a lot more balanced now, knowing that I work for the club. I've got that responsibility. But I hope people still see that I speak like a fan. That's the main thing for me. And maybe last season when things were going badly, I had to be careful. I did have to be careful because, I have to be professional as well. So at times I had to, just not do videos because there was no way you could not be critical last season at times. And yes, I got a bit of criticism for doing that, but ultimately, it was the right thing for me to do at that point. And, this season, I feel like I can be balanced again, because I think we are moving forward again. I think we've moved forward from Rajazani and all to leaving. And it's I'm really enjoying, this first bit of the season. Even though it's not been particularly great on the pitch, I'm really enjoying things on All Leeds TV.
Yeah, I mean, there just seems to be a philosophy again. It's just it was too kind of like cookie cutter kind of stuff that was going on, and I enjoy your content. You always seem to be balanced, and that's what I enjoy about you. You do seem to leave some of the emotions at the door, even though it can be emotional. And you step in and are usually one of the first ones to say it wasn't good enough from the squad tonight or whatever. So I just want to say, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Doing
Well,
good, mate. Doing good.
hey, Oscar, I just wanted to say, first of all, pleasure to meet you, even though it's all audio. But I appreciate you because I'm probably the newest type Leeds fan coming at the end of the 2022 season, and it was the content. I just got hooked right away and tried to absorb as much as I could as fast as I could. And your site was one of the first that I really just kind of connected with, because especially your post-match reactions, because as you described and as Alex described, you take a really balanced look. And you're professional, but you can tell you're a fan and not a professional journalist. So I just wanted to say, yeah, thank you, because it's content like yours that helped bring me in to the club.
Yeah.
That's amazing to hear. Genuinely, lads, that is amazing to hear. I knew we had a fan base in Argentina and America. Just going off our, in terms of what's the word for it? The on YouTube Studio, we can see, like, in terms of our geographical regions and that lot, and they've been really, really high for a long time, especially America last sort of year or so. But to see here that it had that level of influence is what it's all about. That's ultimately an amazing achievement from my point of view. That from our content, it's helped you feel more involved in Leeds United, and
more access to the club. More understanding about what the club is about, like the big fan channels like yourself, Connor, Joe. You guys help us access the club because the fan base is growing. Obviously from the American owners and the 3 years in the Premier League, and so when they go to type stuff in and they want to digest more content, well, you guys are the first ones to come up. So I appreciate it too. It helps give us a taste of what this club is all about, and helps us just deepen the relationship with that. So
exactly.
Absolutely appreciate that. I'm gonna let's dig into the news of the week. Let me just recap what's been going on. It's been crazy. We started off. What's that?
Where do we begin?
Yeah, where do we begin? It's been such a hectic week. I don't even know. It's been literally the ups and downs of this week. It really started off with everyone the draw against Cardiff, and most of the fan channels saying, and most of the fans on Twitter saying, we need to sign some players. And then, well, we got our wish. Joe Rodon and Max Aarons the following day seemed to be coming in. I think maybe it broke late that Monday night. Well, then back on Wednesday, Max Aarons deals hijacked and poached by AFC Bournemouth. Bournemouth then continued. Well, they've now poached Max Aarons, and they've also poached a manager away from us as well, Areola. So that stings a little bit. A smaller club, but obviously in the Premier League, so it's tough on our negotiation. And then the 2-1 cup victory over Shrewsbury Hall. Then we find out Willie Nanto is not in the team because he wants to force a move, according to the Daily Mail. Well, on Thursday, we continue to get more news breaking out on Willie. He is been moving to wants to move to Everton, apparently, according to Fabrizio Romano, for 5 years. That's probably what his agent is leaking. And then obviously Phil A reports, according via Farke, that he's back in training, and Leeds are resistant to a sale. And then Farke comes out with one of the biggest statements of the week. We don't want players that want exit clauses. I mean, it just goes on and on. But, the 49ers, are they negligent? Are they naive? Was kind of the question, at least going with the squad. I hearken back to Phil Hayes, one of his original reports after the season closed, was that 10 or 11 exits, player exits, were coming, probable. We're at 7 or 8 now. I have Koch loan, Llorente loan, who obviously wasn't really involved in the club, but still loan. Christensen loan, Aronson loan, Rodrigo sale 3 million, Vober loan, Adams now all but official to Chelsea for $20 million. So that is, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're at 7 outgoings. Probably Willie will be another one. So I expect some incomings as well, but it's really just cleaning up the mess to me of the previous regime. I mean, what are your boys' takes on the week? We'll start with Oscar.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers so far, there is one major caveat here. I think the major caveat is that they inherited a mess. There's no question about that at all. I think, obviously, the contract situations with the players you've mentioned there,
Yeah,
in terms of Robin Koch, J.G. Rente, Mark Rocker, Brenton Aronson, we know all the players in that lot, Rasmus Christensen. That's not an ideal starting point. You're effectively having to replace 7 or 8 players there and have nothing in return. Because let's be honest, realistically, I would be surprised if any of those players play for Leeds United again.
yeah.
I cannot, even if they have to be loaned out every single season until the end of their contracts or whatever, I could see it happening, to be honest. I just don't think they can come back to play for Leeds, to be totally honest with you. And then, obviously, we've got the situation where we don't know what players want to stay and what players don't want to stay, ultimately. And it's not an easy situation to be in. Normally, when you see teams come down at this level, they do lose players, but not this many players. I think we have had an issue with players just not really buying into playing in the Championship. And yes, I understand to an extent you don't want to be playing in the Championship, especially when you're one of the better players in the team and you probably weren't responsible for the relegation. But there's not a lot of players who can genuinely say that in this Leeds team. Probably only 2 or 3 from last season. So That's disappointing from that point of view. The fact that we are still a massive club at this level, the biggest club at this level for me. There's no question about that at all. And having that chance to bring Leeds back obviously doesn't excite these players enough. So that is a difficult starting point. There's no question about it. Obviously, there was the delay in terms of the takeover, in terms of taking over straight at the end of the season was always going to be difficult in terms of time, between the close season and pre-season. Obviously, Farke was late to arrive. But ultimately, we need to be looking to push out and get out of this league. We really do need to be looking to do that. And we have to give Daniel Farke the maximum tools to do that. And that's what ultimately I will judge the 49ers on. There is still 3 weeks between now and the end of the transfer window. The squad could look totally different. But as far as I'm concerned, the success for the 49ers is, have they built a squad good enough to push for automatic promotion? At this moment in time, I think there's a gap between us and Southampton and Leicester.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big gap, but it can be bridged with a number 10 and the centre forward. There's no question about that at all for me. And the central midfielder. But yeah, it's disappointing for me, the players that have left, in terms of, for Tyler Adams, for me personally, I think it's disappointing he's left to sit on the bench at Chelsea. And yes, that might seem a little bit bitter, but come on, he's not going to start for Chelsea regularly.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing. Yes, the law of the Premier League. Yes, the wage increase, all this lot. But for me, Tyler Adams, I think it's better than that. I think he's too good to sit on the bench. No matter what club he's at, he's too good to sit on the bench. Nonto, again, leaving for Everton. Is that a massive upgrade? Is he a guaranteed starter at Everton ahead of Dwight McNeil, who's already well-versed in Sean Dyche's system? I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure he's guaranteed. I think he's a better footballer, but is he guaranteed to start in a Sean Dyche team in terms of what Sean Dyche wants from his players? I'm not sure. So it's disappointing, some of the players that have left. I think there's been a little bit of short-sightedness there. And it might be a little bit of bitterness. The Max Aarons thing, I understand it from Max Aarons' point of view. If a Premier League club comes calling, and I think Bournemouth are very much a team that's on the up. I think they're going to have a really good season in the Premier League, as annoying as that is to admit. I can understand it from Max Aarons' point of view. And as much as it's frustrating, I do still see the positives. The fact that we were willing to spend 12 million on the full-back in the Championship, that is a positive for me. If we can put that same energy into the centre-forward and the number 10 acquisition, then I think we're well placed. It's frustrating, but I think ultimately I'll judge the 49ers in 3 weeks' time. In reality, I think they brought in a good coach. I think I enjoy watching Leeds again. I think we're on the up.
Yeah.
One team. I think it's I identify a lot more with this Leeds team than what I have done with previous Leeds teams, but I don't want a transitional season. I think we can't have a transitional season because Sinisterra is not going to hang about. You know, he's been loyal so far, Sinisterra. There's no doubt about it. And he was probably one of the few players who absolutely had no responsibility for the relegation for me, apart from getting injured. You know, but you can't really blame him for that. And he's shown, you know, amazing loyalty so far. Obviously, there's 3 weeks till the window closes. But for me, that's my take on things, really. We have to, at the very least, be pushing for automatic promotion. At the very, very least. But the moment in time, I think we're short.
I think I do too. I think we're short as well. At least for the length of the season. I think that, you know, the Premier League season's just now started. We're 24 hours from the kickoff of the Premier League. I think as those roster squads continue to evolve, I think you'll start to see, you know, late pushes of, you know, clubs trying to poach possible players, and those agents are just they'll leak because they get percentage of the deals.
Yeah,
they'll leak those relegation clauses out to Fabrizio Romano or to the papers.
I'm very much of the impression. I agree with Daniel Farke. If a player is not fully committed to Leeds United, they should go. They really should go. I mean, It sounds harsh. It might be a little bit short-sighted. Yes, the best players want to play in the best teams, etc., etc. But long term, you have to have a team of players that are fully buying into it. End of the day, that's what we had under Marcelo Bielsa. It's what we had under Harold Wilkinson, David O'Leary. They fully bought into what we were trying to do. Don Revie, the same. You know, it's a basic for me. I don't care how good the player is. If they're not committed to it, if they're not buying into what we're trying to do, they just have to leave. You know, we've seen it last season. You know, we spent 100 million, had some decent talent in there, but ultimately just wasn't the fight. Yeah, there really wasn't the fight at all. So they have to go if they don't want to be here. And I have no issue with the players that have left so far, apart from maybe Rodrigo. I don't think any of them are going to be great losses in terms of on the pitch, you know, or off the pitch. Certainly off the pitch, it's not going to be great losses. But again, it's still positions that need replacing. But in terms of, do I think it's a mistake letting them go? No, I don't think. I think other than Rodrigo, I don't think any of those players would have rescued the situation against Cardiff or made it any better.
It's more of a depth question, I guess, with some of these folks, some of these guys leaving. But Chris, what do you think? What's about the news of the week and some of the things that Oscar said?
Oh yeah, just can't keep up. It's hard, you know. The heart is hurting, and not emotionally, just like physically. It's just too much. But I will say, I think that. So there's a couple things that I look at is one, the issues with the club. Obviously, there's things that are unique to Leeds right now. One being the contracts, kind of the mess, as Oscar put it, that, you know, the new regime has walked into, Farke has walked into, which he's alluded to, something they're continuing to work through. Not ideal, but he's not going to complain about it. So I don't think I should either. But so that's unique. And I think the other thing right now at the moment is the injuries, which is, you know, I haven't looked at how the injuries have stacked up compared to other clubs at our level, but I imagine we're up there in the league in terms of numbers of players currently out. But I will say things that we're experiencing that aren't unique to Leeds, you know, when you're going through a window, it's going to be a lot of transition. There's going to be a lot of change for every club as they're trying to get their squads put together. So in that regard, since all things being equal and all the clubs experiencing that at the same time right now, I actually put a lot of stock into Farke in terms of how I compare him towards other managers of other clubs and how they're going to transition through that. And I think that he's doing a great job. I think if you listen to when he came in, he said, this is a relegated club. First thing we got to do is really look at the culture and the attitude of the boys and make sure that we're all heading in the right direction. Then we have to look at the squad and who we've got, who we can keep around, who's going to go. And so, you know, like I said, I think most clubs are going through that right now. And I just think that we're in an advantage, actually, with him in charge. And, you know, we'll see how it plays out. I do also agree what's been said about the loans. I think that's always been part of the strategy, is to kind of take this in a little bit deeper, knowing that the Premier League clubs are going to start getting their squads put together and sending people out. So I think that, that has been part of it. I wonder if also they've, looking at the longer term project of potentially, getting promoted, which should be the ultimate goal this year, but getting a lot of players signed to permanent deals that may not have the quality to stick with you later on down the line. They seem to be profiling a type of player that could be around for multiple years.
Yeah. Ampadu's been a revelation, I think.
Oh, amazing sign. I mean, I think we've got really good, despite spending quite a lot of money on him for a championship club, I think amazing value. And I think I'm already getting Ben White type vibes. I know a different position, but, we can just tell straight away with a player that, oh, wow, they're good. They're really good. You just tell it straight away that he's clicked into gear straight away, really.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, just to finish my point, is that, all things being equal again, with how Farke is handling the transition, his leadership so far, the way he communicates, but also the fitness of the club, despite the injuries, and I won't put that on him in terms of his training. I think that's a real asset to us, and we've seen it already play out in the preseason as well as the first two meaningful games. And so if we can get people back, because it obviously if you have a lot of people out, it puts more minutes on the guy's legs, like Ampadu. I was hoping he wouldn't have to play as much in the cup game, but I think the fitness levels, I think Farke's leadership so far, I think we're
it's
okay.
It's so much more attractive to watch us play again. And that was one of the most, and you mentioned a little bit of the fitness as well. The fitness was one of the most disappointing parts of like our, demise in the Premier League over the past like 24 months was, I remember Bielsa ball. I remember us absolutely running teams off the pitch, finding that, extra gear in the 80th, 90th minute. And it was so amazing to watch. Like, oh my gosh, we're going for a third. Oh my God. Like, and I feel like it's maybe not even, it's not to Bielsa level, but it's just like, wow, look at this attractive style of play. We have possession and we go again. You just always see the build up, go again. And guys are really good at, I think, getting the ball off of players. Like, I don't know. It's early doors. We've obviously played two pretty, I guess, teams that would be maybe associated with negative football, Cardiff and Shrewsbury Hall, especially against us. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm optimistic about what this season can bring, at least in what the Farke era could bring. So what do you think about Farke, Oscar, so far, early returns?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I think it's the right fit for us. I'm not convinced yet long term if he's the right fit, if we got into the Premier League, for example, but I'm very willing to be open on that. But I think certainly for where we are at this moment in time, he's a really, really good option for us. I think so far I've been impressed how quickly we've adapted to his style of play. He has coached the team really, really well so far in terms of that we've gone from playing Jesse Marsh, Allardyce football to straight away looking comfortable, having 70-75% of the ball and trying to break teams down. I think so far it has been really positive. But yeah, I think ultimately the biggest thing with Farke is you have to give him the right profile of players. You have to allow him to make his signings and give him the players he needs. Otherwise, I don't think he's the Bielsa type that he can make water out of wine. I don't think many are, to be fair, but I certainly think you give him the tools to do the job, he's a really, really sure bet.
What are the three, if you could, I've been kind of asking this question of a lot of people on my podcast. If you could only pick three positions, Oscar, to upgrade, what would they be?
Guys, we'll be back in 2 seconds, just picking up me.
Okay.
The order. Totally. 2 seconds, guys. Sorry.
All right. I'll throw it to Chris and then I'll just chime in. Honestly, I think it's left back. I think it's 10 and I think it's 9. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think the 10, for sure. There's so many. Actually, I think, obviously I think there's more than 3. So it's kind of hard.
I mean, you'd start to say it. Yeah.
So, and, Aaron's coming in. You saw, the feeling, not just the quality he brings, but also just the potential in filling that role and what we could do. So I think, again, him bowing out exposes that again. So it's top of mind. I think that the fullback position.
Well, fullbacks are almost they're extra wingers. So the fullback position could be like a difference maker.
I just think
it's not something.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just think we're handicapped. I think that what you're seeing is pattern so far as the first halves. We're not doing well. We're not coming out of the gate firing. But as soon as Byram has come in the second halves of both games, he's been a spark. He's brought a lot more energy moving forward. And so I just think that position itself can be a difference maker in the system. So I think that would be, between the 10, the fullback, I obviously would love a striker as well. But if Ritzer's coming back, he needs a place in the squad. He needs to be out there in some role, whether that's on the wing or in the 9. He needs to figure that out quickly, and so. But yeah, I would love to have a 9 as well. I think just proven players, right, and people who are composed. I think we're starting to see a little bit more composure. But with the injuries that have gone out, you saw that yesterday with just JB in there, didn't sound, I guess, to be very composed in the middle, losing a lot of balls. Again, James, kind of that finished product, not quite there, but still charging forward.
Being a newer fan, Chris.
What's that?
Being a newer fan, Chris.
Yeah.
What do you think of? Because I know Ian Juan Carlo Preveda.
Yes.
They say it's.
There you go.
I know him back from the Bielsa era as kind of like a lot of sizzle, not a lot of steak. What is your take on him of what you've seen? He does look like he's maybe got a little bit of steak now. Like he's able to finish. We saw one finish in the friendly in the preseason. We've been able to see him just look very dangerous in that 10 role. He was an out-and-out winger under Bielsa. Somebody that Bielsa kind of put on in like the last 20 minutes of the game to basically run out the clock if we had the lead or we were tied, to kind of do a bit of business, express himself down the pitch. But very young and raw at that time, but maybe now developing a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the way I look at the squad is what I guess I look for, and what I like is when there's a balance of, got really physical players who will fight, literally if they have to. And so I think Rodon's a guy like that I'm really looking forward to seeing come in. I think we lost that with Tyler. Just that ability to go square up one-on-one with guys and not back away in those moments. I like that physicality. I like speed as well. So we have some players who have a little bit of speed. I don't think we're overall very quick. And then the last thing is that creative spark, and I love those players like a Rafinha type, a Sinistera, kind of that artistry. I think Paveda's got that, and I think we need it. I don't think we have many players, especially when a Somerville goes out. I think you're looking at Sinistera right now as the only player that kind of provides that kind of creative, artistic spark.
Yeah.
So I think Paveda has that, and I think he can bring that if it's consistent, right? So he's just got to get minutes to be able to prove that it can be consistent. But I think again yesterday he showed, he was making trouble in there, and we came away with a goal. I know it was good for Gelhardt to get the goal, and I don't know if he even meant to do it, but sure, it's great for his confidence. But I felt that was a Paveda.
He's becoming more of a danger man. Oscar, have you got your pie?
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry
Hey,
about
no
that.
worries.
It was like trying to direct the Leeds United back line. That it was.
Yeah,
I was going one way. The driver was going the other way. I had to wait to him in the end and get outside. Sorry about that.
Well, Oscar, let me ask you. Like, I know you're a big fan of La Liga, right? The Spanish league, and
Yes.
a lot of players over there developed with that creativity, that artistry. Alex was asking me about Paveda, and I think he's one of the only options we have right now besides Sinistera that kind of provide that. What's your take on him and just the need for a player like that in the squad?
Yeah, well, just a couple of things before I answer the question. I'm good to go way past 10, by the way, guys. If you want to go beyond that, in terms of time on the podcast.
I've got to shut it down probably in the next few minutes. But
no worries,
go
no
ahead.
worries. So yeah, and the free signings you were talking about, I heard a little bit of that, and I totally agree with that as well. In terms of the options you've chosen, Paveda. So he's an interesting one. At first, he came, and yeah, there was a creativity to him. I remember having a really good game against Man City at home in the first season back, but we drew 1-1. Caused a lot of problems in that game. But yeah, ever since that, he kind of lost that directness and that confidence in his game. And he had a couple of loan spells. Didn't particularly pull up any trees at Blackburn or Blackpool. But he seems to have come back this pre-season a lot more direct. There's a lot more confidence to his game. I still think his end product is raw, but he's direct. And 1v1, he's getting the better of his fullback all the time at this moment in time. It's just, has he got the end product to be an attacking player in a team that's trying to push for the top two? I'm not so sure, but he's a good option to have because he's a natural right-sided player, which we don't have a lot of. And he's a left footer, again, which we don't have a lot of in the attacking areas. So I like Paveda. I think he's been much better than Dan James, for example, so far this season.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he's been good.
I watched Joe's watch alongs. Obviously, Joe is like the watch along, like
the watch along goat.
The goat.
The goat.
But he was doing something where he said something that I'm just unfamiliar with, maybe because I haven't been a follower of football as long as Joe has or other people. He says, "Oh, he's standing him up." He was like getting excited. He goes, "We haven't had somebody stand a fullback up since Rafinha," because obviously Dan James is somebody that like knocks the ball past the fullback and then runs after it and uses his elite speed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just interesting because he does stop the ball, kind of like, no, you're gonna stand up and try to hang with me here. It is I don't know. It is a different part of your game, or having it in your locker, so to speak. Yeah. So,
it's an exciting player to have. Yeah. And I think certainly the last 20 minutes of games, and he had an impact against Cardiff. There's no doubt about it. We looked a better team and more balanced with Paveda on the pitch. I think there's a lot of this idea you've got to get, I know Nonto's going to leave now, but this idea you have to get Nonto, Somerville, Sinistera on the pitch at the same time, or all your best players on the pitch at the same time. Isn't necessarily the case. It's all about balance.
Sorry about that. There's a... Do you know what a gator is? Oscar?
A gator? Is it short for alligator?
A John Deere. There's these gates. Yeah. It's like a little mini tractor that goes up hills. And this guy, he was coming toward. He was probably a half a mile away, and I'm like, he's probably gonna come right past me, and he did. He came right past me up this little, this little cart path. Yeah, I think he's got to prove it. He's got to stay healthy. But he's one that I think, the pedigree was big. I mean, player ex-Barcelona, a lot of good quality there. So, he's somebody that I think could add to the squad. Somebody else said, it's like now or never really with him. And I kind of am there with it. Like, this is his in the championship with Leeds in this role with Farke. Like, if you can't put it together for whatever reason this season, barring injury, this is it for you.
There's a lot of players you can say that for.
I was thinking the same thing. Dan James
as well.
Yeah.
Pascal, I think, is another one, really. I think he has to really start showing that potential that he showed in his first season under Bielsa. There's countless examples. Even some of the older players as well, you can say, this is kind of like almost last chance territory, I think, for some players. So it's a big season for many of them.
Yeah, and I'd love to see it from Cody Drama as well. If he can stay healthy.
I want to see more Cody. I think, as I said before, I was a fan of the Aaron signing, but I'm not as heartbroken as what I think many are with Aaron's not signing. Oh, don't get me wrong, I think he's a better player than Cody Drama, but Cody Drama is a good option to have. It wasn't a position where I was looking at and thinking we drastically need to sign someone. Although, having said that with Cody Drama, it is strange he's not played much football in pre-season. I think he has had the injury problems, but even when he's been fit, he hasn't been selected, which seems a little bit odd.
Right.
Last 2 minutes, we'll just what's your take on Archie Gray, Oscar and Chris? Like, he's been I think a heralded obviously pedigree for Leeds. The name is big for Leeds United. Man of the match voted by the fans. What do you think his potential is, and what do you think of his? How would you evaluate the past couple games for him?
I'll just go first, and then I'll let Oscar close this out, and I'll just give my take real quick. And I think Archie, to me, is kind of the example right now for some of these other players that are starting to get some minutes. I think he's the benchmark. I think he's really just making a great example, playing, how hard he's playing, and some of the leadership already at his age. So I'm hoping that starts to rub off. We're so thin right now, and I think we're going to need these players in the short term to really step up, especially the ones we just mentioned who might be, maybe their last chances. So my overall take right now, I guess, in just leaving you guys, is I think there's going to be obviously some short-term pain given all the transition, but still hopeful in the long term.
Yeah.
We're going to get it, we're going to right the ship and get through this window and put the squad together that we're going to be with through the season and have some success. But yeah, Archie Gray is just he's leading by example already. And I think the other guys should take notice, follow that lead.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Oscar?
Yeah, I echo that. I do echo that in many ways. I think his potential, it's always difficult to say. He's only just turned 17. It's very difficult to say about potential. But, if we're talking about a potential England international, then absolutely, yeah. I think there's the potential to be that and maybe more. But it's very important how we manage Archie Gray. He can't play every game this season. Yeah, I know he's been very good. I think he's a very good player. I think he's good enough. There's no doubt about it. I'm very much a believer if you're good enough, you're old enough. There's no question about that. But it's more for his personal development. As a Spanish football fan, as I've already said, I've seen with people like Pedri and Gavi. Again, I'm not comparing. I'm just saying in terms of how many games they played at such a young age. They were playing week in, week out. Pedri's had injury problems. Gavi's had injury problems.
Yeah.
And it comes from just too much wear and tear early on. Jude Bellingham, I think, is someone else who I think has played too much football for his age. And it seems a crazy thing to say, given how talented they are. But I think Archie Gray, we've got to be so careful with him, especially as he's going to be such a key player for us, a key part of what we're trying to do in the long term and the medium and short term, really. We saw it with Lewis Cook, not so much at Leeds, but he had injury problems as his career's gone on. Fabian Delph, when he was at Leeds, has had injury problems later in his career.
I saw you mention Lewis Cook as a potential someone you'd like to see come back.
Oh,
right?
Love it. I would absolutely love it, mate. Absolutely love that if Lewis Cook came back. And I think it just makes so much sense. I think him and Ampadu, that's what I think we need to do, to be honest. I think Archie Gray...
Give Archie some cover, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, it puts less... where Archie Gray's playing more 20, 30 minutes rather than full 90s, more regularly. I'm happy for him to play full 90s, but not every single week. It's key for his development. Got to let him grow. And, I just don't think it's right to play every single game. And at the minute, with the depth we've got, he's at big risk of having to play every single week. And there's no doubt his talent at all. I just think we have to be so careful how we manage him as a footballer. Because I think it's still, he played as more of a 10 at the start of yesterday.
Yeah.
I think it's still more to be decided. Is he more of a 10 or is he more of a deeper line, playmaker? I think, I don't know, it's hard to say really. I think probably more the latter. But you have to find things like that out as well. So I think I'm glad he's here. I'm really, really glad to have him as an option. I think it's a nice bonus to have. And that's just my view on it. I think we have to be really careful with his minutes. Same with a lot of players, really, but to a lesser extent because they are a little bit older. But and then obviously Archie's brother Harry is supposedly even better. You know, he's potentially as much of a talent as what Phil Foden is. So I've heard that of many closely connected people to that family, and that's very exciting as well. But yeah, I think Harry's a couple of years younger than Archie, so it's very exciting to see the Gray family still so heavily involved at this football club, given how much they've given to this football club.
Yeah, and his body's still growing, so I think that's something also to monitor because there could be risk of injury there. Exactly. I think that might have been part of what happened last year. But Oscar, let's do this again. Thank you so much for joining me. It was so good to hear your kind of like your Leeds United origin story, the kind of the early days of All Leeds TV, and obviously some great content for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you guys for joining me for the American Leeds podcast. Go ahead and smash the like. This will be up on YouTube and Spotify in the next 6 to 8 hours. And Chris, again, thanks for joining me as well.
Yeah, pleasure, Oscar. Thanks a lot, Alex.
Yeah, Oscar, let's do it again, man.
Anytime I'll jump on again.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.